Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. Today I want to talk about this beautiful beast right here. This is called Saponaria officinalis, or soapwort. So it's mixed in with my milkweed here, but I'll give you some close-up shots to see on camera. This gorgeous thing came with my house. It was planted here in the corner, and it was planted in a few places in the backyard. And I'd never seen it before I bought this house. That was in fall of 2017. So I didn't quite know what it was, but I love it because it grows and it blooms whether I water it or not. It's completely xeric. Now, once I finally figured out what it was and where it's native to, now I'm questioning if I should have it or not. It's not native to the US. Its native range is throughout Europe and Asia and even into Siberia. So this thing is well suited for cold climates, but also very well suited for dry climates, which means it's a perfect candidate to become invasive here in eastern Washington. Saponaria officinalis is quite a common perennial plant. It's from the family Caryophyllaceae. That's the pinks or carnation family. That's as much as I was able to distinguish about this plant when I first moved in, is that it was definitely a carnation. Okay, there's lots of common names for this one. Common soapwort, bouncing bet, I have no idea where that comes from, crow soap, and wild sweet William, and also soapweed, similar to soapwort. Anyway, so regular sweet William is a sweet little perennial plant. It's pinks. It's also called dianthus. It's in the genus Dianthus. This is in the genus Saponaria. They're in the same family, the carnation family of Caryophyllaceae, but they're totally different plants. Meanwhile, soapwort and bouncing bet, I don't know where that name came from. Maybe because it bounces from place to place, I don't know. But it's really hard to tell plants by their common names because different areas use different common names. And sometimes common names can be referring to different plants. So anyway, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to call it soapwort, okay? How to identify this plant? This flower head is already spent, but you can see all of the little calyxes. They're like little balloons. It's got opposite branching. Lanceolate leaves with 3 strong veins. Smooth margins, they're rather stiff. Those veins are quite prominent on the bottom, but really it's the joints. This is the real giveaway of the carnation family. Everything is opposite. The leaves, 2 nodes, and all the flowers are all opposite each other on the main branch. If you're going to keep this plant and cultivate it, and you want to deadhead it, you'd take off the top one down to the next joint, but this is already bloomed. So you go to the next joint, but this is already bloomed, etc. all the way down until you find a joint that's currently blooming. This one's completely done all the way down, so I'm just going to take it all the way down. This one is going to bloom again, so I cut it to right there. The scientific name Saponaria is derived from the Latin name, or Latin word, sapon, which means soap. That's also the word where we get saponin, which is the name of the chemical that's in this plant that is toxic. I think it only exists in the leaves. I did find some references that said people have used it for food. It's used for medicine, and it's also used to make soap. Well, hence the name. Cool. I'm not going to get into those details. I'm not qualified to talk about medicinal stuff. You can find that from a reputable source on those items. The native range for this plant is throughout Europe and Asia and into Siberia. And it can be found as an escapee throughout the US and is considered noxious and invasive in some states. So check your state's noxious weed list for this plant before you try to plant it. It's not on Washington's noxious weed list, but I did find it on Colorado's and California's. So check your state to make sure if this plant is safe to plant or not. I am going to recommend caution with this one because, as I said, it grows even in our dry desert climate of Spokane, whether it gets watered or not. So I truly feel that this plant could easily escape cultivation and become an invasive problem. Having said that, it's a host plant for hummingbird moths. I actually saw a hummingbird moth drinking out of it just the other day. It's beautiful. Hummingbirds also love this plant, as do many bees and several other also native as well as honeybees. And I have also found that the creeping rhizomus roots are excellent at controlling erosion on hillsides. So I have planted this, literally just dug it up from my yard and planted it for a couple of clients to control erosion. It's a very useful plant. So in certain situations, I do feel like I think the benefits may outweigh the risks, but if it's not in one of those situations, I'm not just going to go plant it anywhere. Now, I did try to take this plant out of this corner a couple of years ago because it was just getting a little too big for its britches. This was taking over. I couldn't water my window box because it was so big I couldn't get in there. So I decided to take it out and put something else in here. And I see that in order to get this thing gone, I'm going to have to treat it like a weed. It has a very thick and very robust rhizomous root system. So we're going to dig it up just like we would any weed. And that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so first tool we're going to want is a fork in this case. So we are here at a training, and I've got all my crew that's going to help me with this. Everybody grab a fork or a shovel. We're going to want to move the planter out of the way, and then I'm going to get some pot to put little seedlings of other desirable things in. Show you what kind of roots you guys are dealing with here. Pretty much have to eradicate it just like a bishop's weed. Down in there, that's what you're after, is these right here. And you've got to seek and destroy all of them. The downside here right now is that when I dug this up a couple years ago, I thought I had sifted out all those roots.
Oh no.
But what it did was the ones that are left were probably spurred to grow out. And so now they've grown that way and this way and this way. We're not getting this out of here. It ain't gonna happen. Crackweed here is, that's there to stay. So you grab it, don't do that. You wanna follow it as much as you can and just keep sifting until you get the whole thing out. You don't want dirt piling up like that. If you need support on a plant, use stakes. So here's another option for a stake. It's a bigger loop, okay, but it hooks like this. So that'll be perfect for this milkweed that we're excavating around. I'm gonna put it in right next to where I want it to be. About the height I want, open it up, and then wrap it around and loop it. And then that should, and let go. There we go. Okay. Should hold it up just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back through and sift through the soil again just to see what I find. There's still a few roots. This is going to be a task for a while. So whenever you're trying to tackle a weed with persistent perennial roots, you've got to get the whole root. You're never going to get the whole root, not in one dig. Like that would be amazing. But you want to get as much of the root out as you can. Then water it and let it sit for a while. 2-3 weeks, you'll start to see growth from wherever the roots are that you missed, and then you'll know where to dig the next time you come in. Let me see that root you just got. Yeah, nice. Nice. Yes, roots. Get the roots.
Stuff to do when we were there last.
Woo! Look at that!
Yeah.
Be proud.
Man. Gonna mount it on your wall. Yeah.
Alright, so in order to really get this thing going, you're gonna have to dig it a couple of times. So we've dug, we've sifted, we've got as many roots out as we can find in this short training. So now I'm gonna water the heck out of it. We're gonna wait a few weeks, and in about 2 to 4 weeks we're gonna start to see growth from the roots that we missed. Then we'll know where to dig to get the rest of them. This is the soapwort a couple weeks later. There's still some up under the rose and by the sidewalk, but we got most of it. We can usually get weeds like this in about 2 to 3 digs. It's a lot of work, but to me it's worth it to not use chemicals. This one, growing out of the concrete, I ain't gonna be able to dig that. So if I want this gone, unfortunately I'm gonna have to use a chemical. Personally, I like it. I think it shows how tenacious this plant is. And I mean, I think it's pretty in an otherwise really boring corner of my dilapidated concrete driveway. So I am going to leave that one, but I am going to keep this gone from here. I'm not going to plant anything here until I know for sure I've gotten it all. So next year maybe, I'll probably plant something here in the spring, but for right now it's just going to be bare. And I do believe that's it. Alright, so on that note, thanks so much for watching everybody. Remember to like the video if you learned something and it was valuable to you. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And on that note, guys, I will see you in the garden.